couple seconds running late, a little bit late right now. I got JP waiting in the wings. So we are going to get a little talk tonight about Egypt in Canada. Yeah, hey there. Also going to be looking at some pretty atrocious genocide stuff. So warn your children. Welcome, everyone, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon, formerly Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past. Because the mud flood was Armageddon, don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Sound check syllabus. How you doing, man?
Hello.
First question, do you have any books I could borrow? I'm just kidding, man. You got a bunch of books in the background there, man.
Not running too.
Now, how's it going? Now, I would pronounce your name Ian, or Jan. How do you would pronounce it?
Jean.
Jean?
French. So if I start talking French, well, I can't even do accents anymore.
It's Jean? John?
Yeah, John Paul.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So JP is what I go by, right? So
yeah,
and then JPT because my last name's Tizzard, kind of like lizard, right?
How you've been traveling in the Rocky Mountains of Canada? You spotted a pyramid.
Not exactly, right? I mean, I worked, so I did water slide maintenance for a few years and basically working all over Western Canada. So all 4 provinces. So, often enough, I went into BC. I'd have to go through the Rocky Mountains and everything I'd learned from you, right? I was learning all sorts of new stuff with the rocks, the mountains melting, all that stuff. So I'm going in observer mode and I'm looking at these mountains different than I ever did because they're always beautiful to go through, right?
Right.
I love the mountains. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of things I noticed. I mean, I can't even get into that right now.
Yeah, they're everywhere, right?
Oh yeah. And of course, I collected a lot of rocks and everything, right? I've got a great rock that shows the heart valve. Very clearly, right? It's got to excavate a little bit. It's got this kind of stripes on the helical fold where between there's a little bit of excavation. I'll show you it, right? Instead of my hand doing that.
I know, but in the meantime, we're caught up in it. People understand that this is a show of people talking about what they know about God. We're not the cut and paste going to spend, 6 hours editing a video. But I've got some stuff pulled up. You know what I found? I had a busy day. I had 2 classes, had a doctor's appointment, came back and got an email from Sergio, Better Than Gold. Like, I hope you like this video, and I'll check it out. And he was, he was teaching Golden Age past theology, and he was doing pretty good. He had a stack of books behind him, but he had more of I'm going to say, I don't know what you do, but it might be a combination blue collar, white collar. This guy had white collar written all over him. You'll see him later. And he's yakking on, and I'm not finding anything wrong with his Golden Age theology. And then he goes, and this is my first year of teaching that class. Another professor taught it at the college I work at. But now that I'm teaching the prophets, and knowing what I know now, my mind's blown. And it dawned on me. I go, oh my goodness, there is a professor at a Reformed college teaching Golden Age past theology. There's no stopping it now.
It's out. I mean, it's not us doing it, right?
Right.
I mean, it's the Lord. So.
Amen. Otherwise, they would have had.
It all works, right?
When you see this guy, everybody's going to say, why didn't God use him to find the rocks instead of the guy that's always taking peyote and smoking pot and mushrooms and stuff like that? Because this guy, Sergio, found somebody that I hope, he didn't get into his view on the Trinity. I imagine if he's employed at a university, he's a Trinitarian, But
Well, as far as the smoking pot, peyote, mushrooms, all that sort of thing, a lot of people have different opinions on that, but God works in mysterious ways, and we're in a time that we're just trying to sort things out here, right, with an honest heart. So
Well, you had me
for some of us,
interested
it
in
seems like that's
your
the path.
email when you mentioned that you had your ear acupuncture. No, wait, your steroidal neck muscles,
Yeah,
your acupunctured.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And you
Okay.
sounded like you were happy with the results, and maybe it's it's from the Orient, so it might be demonic. I don't know either. And you were questioning it. I'm no help for you. I'm going to try ear acupuncture. I know somebody that works at the university that does it, and everybody likes it. And
Well, I understand how it works now, right? For a long time, I always wondered because you always wonder how things work. If something works, it works, and then you wonder what's going on, right? Like, what's how does the system function and how God set it up? We want to know these things, right? And so, I mean, it takes a long time to sort out things like the body. I mean, I had my own injury when I was quite young. It was a hockey injury, right? It wasn't severe, but it was severe enough that it affected me the rest of my life, right? In a subtle way.
wow.
And essentially, all it is I was cross-checked it from behind. Um, I was 14 years old, I think, or just turning 15, right? So, well, almost 40 years ago. So I went basically into the boards head first and shoulder first, horizontally, right? And so I torqued this down and this over. And I went to I was playing a hockey tournament in Jasper National Park where they just had that fire, right? Um, but that was probably what 1985 or something like that. But
Whoa.
yeah, so I went to the hospital. Of course, back then, all they do is they take the X-ray. Of course, everybody before it told me that it's probably a broken clavicle. So they put on the uh, well, what is it
Arm
that
sling.
or scapula or whatever? What is it? The scapula or clavicle? No, scapula.
Yeah,
Scapula,
that's in the
correct.
back.
And the clavicle along here on the shoulder bone, right? I think that's the clavicle. So, and I'm probably forgetting the word because I forget all sorts of words all the time. The important thing
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
concept, right? Right? It's knowing.
I when I was first doing the rocks, I knew all of those body parts because I was finding them.
Unless you keep up
And if
that.
you keep going now,
Oh,
if you
so
could tie in your recent, because I was intrigued by what you mentioned in your email about some sort of nerve endings, and you followed them in your dream or something. What was I reading?
okay, so yeah, this relates to the injury ultimately, right? And a lot of my work over the last few years, because I was working in water slides. Some of them are open, but others of them are tunnels, right? So the whole water slide is a tunnel. So you're in there crawling around. Some tunnels are bigger than others, but inevitably you're going to have decent posture while you're doing that stuff. So, you find yourself when you're getting tired and fatigued the body, putting the head forward a little bit because your muscles are getting tired, right? And of course, if you have old injuries where the muscles aren't supporting the body properly, then you have other muscles fighting, getting more tense, trying to support the body. And that electrical activity isn't working properly in the body ultimately, right? And so we lose energy that way. It's as simple as that, I suppose, to describe it. Um,
There's a
it's
tie-in.
what we can feel,
Yeah,
right?
there's an
It's how much
electric
energy.
tie-in. He's tying it into electricity. Maybe you could explain how come when you have a junction box, not all the energy transfers, some just escapes. They can't figure out electricity. We know a lot about it, but we don't know everything.
I think it's probably the way they're using it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe it's a corrupted way, a dirty way, something's escaping.
yeah.
I wouldn't imagine the way God uses it. Anything
No,
would be
yeah. You
wasted,
know what
right?
their problem is, JP? They
Well,
use
there you go.
round numbers. They round everything off. They don't. they figure, well, I'm out to the 10th digit. That's good enough. Not for God, and not when you're, what, well, I'm going to, let's put your story on hold right now. Because the main point, and we have the magnificent seven in here listening, including the good friend and moderator of the show, Marcella. And this is going to be a PG-13 section here, because this is why I do it. This is what the Lord is, it's about the rocks. Yeah, I can walk to the gold, and I become a great sculptor. I wrote a book, but we're all going to die, and we're going to be running for our lives. These are the end of the good old days. And they're not that good, right? And it's
we've always known we were going to die anyway, and this is a lot
right.
more
Yeah.
interesting way to go through it, right?
And does anybody ever really die? Because when a seed dies and falls to the ground, well, then it really lives. But these things happened less than 70 years ago, uh, Greek Turkey. That's where the Bible was happening. And all we know is rewritten history. Well, I better do my thing here with that. I'm on a streak of avoiding the copyright strikes and stuff like that. And I'm not a medical doctor, nor am I a financial advisor. Are you, JP?
I probably wouldn't take financial advice from myself. That's what you're asking.
Hey, what did you think of that thumbnail?
Oh, nice. Yeah, actually, that kind of ties in a little bit, I think, with something that just came to me before the show with Pangea and trying to sort out how the continents moved and when. I mean, I know you've thought about that, but
Keep that in the back of your mind, people. That he's going to flesh that idea out. RJ might pop on later too. Now, this guy, I forget his name, but Malthus, the Malthusian equation. Population is so bad in like 1738 that society should court the return of the plague to keep the population down. Wow. Oh, so we got this guy. I just subscribed to him today, and I'm thinking, like, dude, you're horrifying. I mean, I tried to scare people, but I can cheer them up by saying, look at their grist mills. Some of them were pretty fancy, and they had these locking things in there to, you can run. The thing is I don't think those people, JP, were stupid. I don't think that they were so dumb they couldn't have invented a car. I don't think they wanted to deal with oil and the pollution. I think they had a good thing going on with steam and water power in small sections. The only problem is when you try to step up your agriculture to feed armies. You have to maintain it, because after the war, it's like, now what do I do? All I know how to do is feed the army and crush. Well, you can go to work in a mine and crush gold, because all they ever do is they can't find gold. They'll use copper, tin, magnesium, anything, lithium. They're going to dig in the ground. They love it. They've been doing it pretty, you can run this with this. See, this is hydroelectric. Well, it's just water power. Does the same thing as electric. You could go bigger with steam. In this one little area, I had a little time to drink some coffee and look at this video today. There's 18. No, it says nearly 2 dozen. So that'd be almost like 25, because 2 dozen's 24. Well, maybe 20 to 24 of copper tin mines in one little scattered area. So that the idea is they could have lived comfortably, without a real king, if they would have followed God's law. So supposedly that's a copper mine, JP. They said what they said. It doesn't look like one, but oh wait, that's not a copper mine. This is just a crevice leading to it. And what struck me was how close it matched the map. Where's that? I thought I screenshotted. Oh man! Oh, here it is. You see that? Look at how this is the map, and then this is the actual picture. Just if you slant this, the bottom a little bit to the left. I mean, they nailed it. It even has that little hook there. So maybe we should trust some of these old maps because I mean, look at that. And there's the lake, and it's like say it's like kind of like Florida, except the tips up here. It's like it still looks like that. There's the little hook, and I just thought that was cool. And that's so here's their maps. Just that's what you need is tribes, people doing it tribe style, not army style.
Retreated, and Talat Pasha gave the order to leave the Assyrians where they were. Thanks in large part to the resistance of these two towns, the Ottomans never completed their genocide in the Tur-Abdin region, and it remains one of the only Christian majority regions of Turkey.
Well, what happened before that?
Word order: yak, vor, oldur, burn, demolish, kill. One survivor of these massacres was Judad Abradova, who gave her testimony years later. Her husband was the headman of a small Assyrian village called Ardshe. When Ottoman forces arrived in her village, they burned her house down and took her husband and sons into the village square. They were beaten mercilessly as their captors ordered them to convert to Islam. When they refused, Judad was forced to watch as the soldiers executed her children one by one. Judad threw herself over her husband to protect him, but the soldiers simply kicked her off and shot him anyway. Intense violence occurred in the Hakkari
like
Mountains and around Lake Urmia in Van province,
just like a
where
rundown
Assyrian tribesmen controlled many of the villages. Here, as elsewhere, the scattered Assyrian villages were attacked without mercy, and the few survivors escaped with tales of inhuman cruelty. In the village of...
So anyway, these things are bound to happen. It's like we've been set up to believe not here, only over there. We're rich and prosperous, and well, they probably thought they were pretty rich. They looked kind of rich and prosperous, or I'm sure they thought they weren't poor and going to be.
Investigated 20 villages. Everywhere there is complete ruin and devastation. Churches, schools, and libraries have only walls remaining. The villages are full of corpses of the poor victims of massacres. The brutality shocked even the Ottoman High Command, who officially blamed the violence in Van province
on
Jevdet's
Ottomans, just to refresh your memory, after the reset, after the reaping, there's the Armageddon, that was the mud flood. Then they had the 1,000-year reign of Christ. Hooray! And then Satan was loosed in 1711. That's 290 years that is spoken about in the Daniel chapter 12. And then they needed somebody to hate the Jewish people. JP, I'm talking to you, man. So they invented the Muslim religion. They wrote the Quran, which is 30% of a Syrian hymnal. And they were, of course, not Trinitarian. Trinitarian is since Satan is loosed theme. Nobody really believed in the Trinity until like the late 1600s. This is that happened there. They had another. That was a Syrian genocide. This one is called the Armenian.
And they found ways to continue their genocide anyway. Although mass killings and burning of villages still occurred, the bulk of extermination occurred through forced labor and deportation, which became known as white massacres. Wartime conscription applied to Greeks, but arming them while persecuting them would have been foolish. Instead, young Greek men were conscripted into forced labor battalions, who were assigned grueling physical labor across the empire. These labor battalions were a tacit form of genocide. Cut off from their homes, underfed, and overworked, many of the men who were taken were inevitable. One
Now that was a Star Fort city.
superior and
But
functionally
they
dictator,
thought they had it
Talat
going on.
Pasha
Their
ordered the
economy struggled
cleansing
at
of Greek
times, but
settlements all along
they
the
were going to
coasts
elect
of
a
the
good
Aegean
leader
Sea.
one of these days.
Local governments were told to encourage Greeks to leave voluntarily, but violence was accepted
I'm
and
encouraging
inevitable.
everybody to leave the
One
cities
victim of this
voluntarily right
violence
now
was the
too.
coastal town of Phasia.
You know that Kiev, that city in Ukraine. You ever hear of that one, JP?
Sorry, which one in Ukraine?
Kiev, the
Kiev.
capital.
Oh yeah. KIF or
That
KIEF.
was one of the biggest major star fort cities of the old Tartarian world, they say. And they had it. I mean, you see the pictures of it 10 years ago, it looked like New York City. Now these guys making all these scary videos, and it's like,
It's amazing how much they've been able to change the historical narrative everywhere. Very thorough.
yeah, guess who didn't get genocided? Well, not these guys. They got genocided. They all got genocided. Even these people that I was trying to show, you probably saw them sitting there. That's enough of this one. I mean, there's this other one I wanted to show you, and then we're going to get to some more stuff.
Thieves and leeches who were stealing the wealth of the rest of the population. This caused outbreaks of violence and
So you
persecution.
got to identify who they are. They're the people that are coming in. Then you rise up against them, and then people put you down for rising up against them. And there's a no-win situation in these wars.
Throughout the late 19th century. The Ottoman government regularly seized Armenian land to redistribute to Muslim and Kurdish settlers, and the Kurdish Hamidian regiments were given free rein to raid Armenian villages as part of.
Now, why didn't they have mass suicide Islamic bombers since 680 AD, Common Era? Because there was no Muslim religion until 1711. And then they made it up and they had to establish it, force it in, get rid of the Christians in one area. You know, what's the word? They stole the things, from Seleucid and other people that, they didn't know Muhammad. Nobody ever even seen Muhammad. There's no records of Muhammad. You can't do a zeitgeist treatment like they tried to do on Jesus. Like, did he exist? And it's like, okay, let's stop doing this. Yeah, obviously he existed. Muhammad wouldn't stand up. They invented this religion in the late 1800s so that there could be a foil with Zionism right there in the same part of the same fake Holy Land. Go, JP.
Oh, why would you talk about the White Massacre? What I've learned is names are always code for something else, right? Like it's.
No, I don't know.
We're told one thing, so it's just that they're out there. And so, what does the White Massacre refer to? What do they say?
Propaganda, I think, was what they were kind of getting at, right?
Well,
just go ahead and lay it out.
I think it's like whitewashing things.
Yeah, whitewashing the truth
and getting rid of, like, you think of the White Massacre and who's in white. It's like the bride is in white, I suppose, or we're supposed to be in white, pure. It's reference to the millennial kingdom or reign, I suppose. And the millennial kingdom is a misnomer, right? Because the kingdom is forever and ever. It's never lasting. It's not going to end. It was just the reign that was 1,000 years. So when people say millennial kingdom,
you know what? I do think that's a holdover, and I might have been a part of that, because that's a holdover from. I was a post-millennial for 40 years, and we thought the millennial was going to go on until I obviously was very optimistic post-mill. I was saying we can do it. I was saying no reason we can't colonize the moon and Mars and make them all Christian. Duh. One more little show here. Finish off with the Kurdish. I didn't even want to show you there. That was only in the 1980s. You were 14 years old getting your clock cleaned in hockey from behind. And these guys, relatives, were killing people like crazies. Let's see how it
of
started.
their resettlement. Despite attempts to muster international support, the Armenians were left to defend themselves and formed a number of impromptu militia groups to defend their towns. But the
They're
Ottoman
Starfort
authorities
towns.
interpreted this as a sign of rebellion and cracked down hard in the 1890s. In 1894, thousands of Armenians were massacred in the town of Sasun following a dispute over taxes. International condemnation of the massacre only seemed to anger the Ottoman.
As the Committee on Reference and Council is charged, the Conference of the Missionary Societies of the United States and Canada, which created it to represent the interest of various societies propagating or hoping to,
matters.
yeah, Christians in Turkey taken, and Turkey was never a Christian. So they were protesting and they knew about it.
Authorities and the general population. A surge of violence in 1895 and 1896, known as the Hamidian massacres, killed up to 300,000 Armenians. Episodes of violence continued into the 1900s, such as the Adana.
And the violence continues to this day. So, what do you know about the land of Nod, JP?
Oh, just from Genesis that I think about it.
Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on a physical, place that's called east of Eden. Genesis 4:6. It was kind of exiled there, and he goes, I don't want to go there. People will kill me. And it was he built the first city. Do you think it was a Starfort, or were some other cities there, or were the Starforts there and he did something like Baalbek or something? I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is what I was going to go over, and this is what is going to be on the plate. This is, we've done a lot of work, and when I say we, I mean RJ and I, about the giants and the two creations and everything. But the land of Nod and Cain and his wife, and who was he afraid of, And of course, again, Wikipedia is going to jump right to Josephus as, well, here you go. Well, we'll just tell you where it is. He wrote this in 1893, which is, come on, 23 years into the golden age of Christ. He's writing a book about, not much to see here, just the Rome took over another town.
Josephus and his whole 120 manuscripts from ancient history, right? That's all they found. Considering there's how many 100,000 of the manuscripts of Scripture.
I think there's at least 2,500 that are full manuscripts. There's innumerable fragments. They're everywhere, like partials, half of this, half of that, the scriptures from the Old Testament and New Testament, that's all anybody used to care about. What I was focusing on, the Lord just dropped it in my mind today, that the big difference, I think it was in my second class, was that there was no point in history. It was me studying after school for a class tomorrow. I've never read any Confucius, but it was assigned, so I did have to read some of it. And I was just blown away by, he's obviously referring to Christ when he talks about, you have to get a firm foundation, then you found the way. It just seemed, but the main takeaway is, there was never a point in history until after Satan's been loosed where everyone in the world taught there's a God somewhere, you're going to be judged. How you work it out was between what they all believed. But until the fake Darwinism and it forced down our throat with the combo of the globe, that is a completely new.
Well, we were forced back into a.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm out of bullets.
Yeah, we were just forced back into the old system, the old debt system from the ancient world.
There you go.
So we're using the same legal way. You know, if you do something wrong, there's a penalty. You go to court, you're charged. Whereas, you know, I mean, Jesus, that was one of the things of the old world, the way they did business, and it was coming and basically, owe no man nothing, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And you know, of course, the truth is Jesus saying, love one another, give freely. I mean, look at what God gave to us. You know,
Yeah, grow in the soil that he broadcast the seeds out. He threw it out there wherever you land. Grow in that soil. If you're a 30, 60, or 90-fold Christian, don't try to harp at the heels of the 100-fold Christians. And you 100-fold Christians, stop worrying about the salvation of a 30 and 60-fold Christian, would you please? I told them, right?
work on our own personal relationship with, because that's the whole thing, right? And Jesus showed up to say, hey, the Father, the creator of all, the Most High, wants a direct personal relationship with you.
Better way than getting it put in your heart. You know, I'll write the word on your heart. Could there be a better way than that? Are you a good reader?
Well,
You sound like your voice is really good for reading. So do you want to read verses 11 through 16? And then go ahead and just give your off the cuff feelings about it, okay?
And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have given me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. Then the Lord said to him, not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest any who found him should attack him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden.
Wow, that's a lot, right?
It is. Because, yeah, it leaves out a lot of the details, but a lot happened there, right?
Yes.
So it's easy to come up with a lot of books and speculation and sell them everywhere with a bunch of different stories and get people itching ears here and there and more confused than ever.
Well, you know, I have at least one question that's, you know, not intended to trip you up or anything, but it, you know, it's just one of those questions. So, you know, we'll have people here. You know, what do you think that, you know, so Cain went there and he was going to build a city, and he was worried right then at that time, they're going to kill me. They're going to hear what I did and kill me. Who? Was he going to, you know, the common story is there was a bunch of incest, and then they all mated and spread out. So Cain, when he said that, he was looking that far ahead. We said, well, in 120 years, Seth is going to be born. And then maybe, you know, and then they'll kill me a couple hundred years from now. Or were there people, as some people believe, in the land of Nod that maybe were from a previous creation? You know, that's something that I think is going to take, you know, I don't think I'm going to be ready to give out like any definites for like 10 days, 2 weeks.
I think that it is related to that, and it's related to how the pole seems to be shifting, right? The North Pole, magnetic north, how it's drifting.
I like drifting better, you know.
Drifting, yeah. Right? Because basically, if you're thinking of the clock, right? We've seen that the clock image, and then in it you've got the other clock. You've seen that one and how it slowly turns around. They say there's the ages as it goes around, but within that clock is basically, that's the age where the focus of the world is, right? I don't know what's going on over here, but
I don't even care. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like God has probably destroyed that stuff, destroyed it in the past, and we're coming around to.
Or if there was anything even there, if you're talking about outer rings outside our rings. That's something I completely leave alone and shut down when it gets talked about, because
I just
we
saw
have our
something.
Bible and our little eyeball world, and that's
That's
all I care about.
exactly,
You know?
exactly. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because it can explain why possibly that pole drift is happening.
Something's happening. It's moving. Yeah. It's
But I think the focus is it's another one of those things where people start going, oh, what's past over there, instead of going, we don't know what's going on
yeah.
here, really. I mean, I don't know
Right.
what's going on in the
And
neighbor's house next door inside there, you know.
right.
We think we know everything, and look at what happened
Yeah.
during COVID,
And in
right?
the meantime, their nephew's talking to their next door neighbor on Omegle, or doing book reports on bestiality in the 5th grade, while the Christian world is arguing about, bloodlines and stuff. I want to show you one scripture here. No, wait, it's not a scripture. It's a tab I had pulled up. It's a book from 1893. I think the last pretty good uh Bible dictionary. It's just they put everything that's mentioned in the Bible. There's a word for it. It's like Smith's dictionary today. That's the famous one. So for Nephilim, you know what they put? Giants. Hebrew word left untranslated by the revisers, the name of one of the Canaanitish tribes. The revisers, however, translated the Hebrew Gibberine into mighty men. That's it. This whole discussion of Enoch and the giants, it's part of what was the flat earth psyop. It was put out with people locked and ready, from Mark Sargent to Skiba, to just take it right down to Anunnaki, Atlantis, UFOs, and build the Bible around the book of Enoch. That's what I think. I saved that because I wanted people to see that. There was, and there need be no more discussion about what are the Nephilim. There were giants. The Bible barely mentions them. It barely mentions the Watchers. Everybody's interpreting it through Enoch, and they're forgetting the book of Enoch in like 27 places completely contradicts the Bible. And in 150 places, it's questionable if it's even making sense. It's not scripture. That's not my opinion. That was everybody's opinion until the flat earth psyop, when all of a sudden the fringe of Enoch, Anunnaki, I'm not saying it's aliens. Yeah, you are.
Right, and they bring the Book of Enoch into it all the time. And they're trying to sort things out and constantly referring to the Book of Enoch. And it's like, just focus on the Bible. I mean, that's the authority. That's all we have that we know we can trust. Go with that and attempt to sort out the story, right?
Yeah.
But Book of Enoch, I mean, people want all the details, right? They want to know everything that tickles the ears in there.
Because this is vague. This is vague. I get it. I mean, it's like it just goes right to Cain knew his wife. Well, did he wait the 120 years before Seth was born? And then they had children. They don't go into the age. It makes it seem like there could have been. This is something that is going to take a little time, and I'll have to pick the RJ's brain, and he doesn't like that too much unless the spirit's moving a bit. We'll get to the bottom of it, but there's something to it. But in the meantime, it's so comforting to know that we always have Deuteronomy 29:29. That's what's amazing, and it's so easy to find. You just hit 29 and go to the last verse. There it is. Hey, the secret things belong to the Lord our God. but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children. Okay, forever, so that we may do all the words of the law. And now we're still under the law that's written on our heart. Amen. Because what's better, the spirit, is the spirit of the, is better.
Well, that was a good argument. I remember as a child, even growing up, and we're talking about things going on in the world and wrongs that happened in the court system and everything, and how they were judging by the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law, and that's because
were your parents political? Were your parents political? My dad was very political.
My dad, I suppose, is aware of all that, but he didn't get super into it. We ended up back in Canada. I was born in California, but I was only 2 years old when we came back to Canada. My dad had a machine shop. Had one more payment on it, apparently. He was doing some work for a customer. They went bankrupt, couldn't get that money. Then no one would lend the money to him, even his rich uncle, the millionaire, right? And so lost the machine shop. So he decided to go back to Canada because that's where we were.
My brain froze up when you mentioned a billionaire.
A millionaire. Actually, I could call up my relative. I haven't talked to him for a long time. I've been thinking about him. I think he's got 100 or 200 million at this point. Not quite a billionaire, but enough, right? He's in Colorado, actually.
Yeah, I think I've got about 1 million pennies, or I had them.
I've seen him in my life.
Hey, Sergio sent me an email, and it had this guy, and it made my day. Thank you, Sergio, because not only was he laying out, now he doesn't touch on the Trinity. I'm assuming he's a Trinitarian. They all are. But then he said this, and I was waiting to hear something wrong. He didn't say anything wrong. He said this.
Kingdom. Now, isn't it interesting that here they are asking about the destruction of Jerusalem, and Jesus responds to their question about when with saying there are going to be wars and battles among nations. Why would he answer that way? I said this, I think it was yesterday. As I have prepared for this New Covenant School of Theology course that I'm teaching right now on the Old Testament prophets, first time I've taught this course. One of our other professors taught it in previous.
Sergio, I hope that you're here and can see that. This guy is a college professor. The golden age passed. It's in a reformed college, and he said earlier he's been teaching in universities for 25 years. He looks like he's 35. What did he start teaching college when he was 10 years old or something? What is this? So I couldn't be more excited. What do you think, man? That's pretty good, right?
Oh yeah, it's gaining momentum. It's nice to see the Lord putting it there, right? Like you said,
right
it's a
there.
Surprise. So, but it's not a surprise, really. You pioneered a lot of information with it, but there's what I've come to realize too, is there's a lot of people have woken up to it who had never come across your stuff, right?
Exactly.
Totally another way, because it's the Lord doing it.
It is the Lord doing it. So the thing is, it really is, the answers to the prayers of the one butterfly wing of the first time, and standing there in Palisade, Colorado, and have just gone over the Victor Schauberger vortex, and I had studied base 6, base 20 math, and determined that if a 15-foot giant was hit by the glittering sword, frozen like a log, and it used Victor Schauberg's log flume method, how would it go down the Colorado River? It should be right here. So I go there. 5 for 5, I find these things. And the first time, it's like, Oh, I didn't bring my waterproof boots, and there's that rock that I want. It's like 40 feet out there. Well, I had to go get it. And for me, it seems like, okay, I did that. But there's 7,000 more prophets like myself that are being used by God that are going to blow this wide open. But it's never going to reform the world. It's only going to be a narrow road. We've lost this. Read the battle. We're getting encompassed about. It's not like, oh, and then they're going to fight a great big battle. No, we're not. We're going to get rescued again. It's very comparable to waiting on another rapture, except we don't. We only have a vague time of what what I'm saying is like 2046. Based on 9/11 being the trigger of the last 45 years. Blessed are those who make the last 45 years. Go your way, Daniel, until the end. There'll be 1,290 days. Blessed are those who make the last 45. For the 1335 is what it says.
It seems like we're on that trajectory. It's because we can't know for certain, right? I really like your reasoning and everything. I agree with you. The 1290 or the 1290, because that's the 290th year after the 1,000-year reign, and that right there is 290. It's like, why even mention it? Besides saying there's, blessed are those who wait and read.
And 45 exactly
years.
goes to
But there's something
9-2.
that happens, right? At that point, it's kind of saying that last 45 years, there's something. It's ramping up. It's at the end, so it's going to be building.
Oh my goodness, it's ramping up like crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I retired at age 54. I was going to go live on a golf course, and then this happened. My wife found the 50 Shades of Grey that was kind of better than me. And, next, I'm on my own, and then boom, big vision number 2 of like, and I'm like, hey, what happened? Because I had lived my whole life of being like sheltered like Job. And then all of a sudden, here's, I remember the comforting cocoon of trust Jesus and don't ever deny him. And okay, easy. Then there's this coming here with this light, and I'm going like, no, just kill me now. I don't, whatever this is, I don't want it, And that's when I understood God for the first time, really. You know what? You know how you get that feeling of, what God was basically in his way saying, if you think I'm asking you to do this, I'm telling you, this is what you're going to do. And this, and so at that, I started going like, am I going to die? I mean, really, I was that big of a baby. I was just going like, am I going to die doing this? And nothing, and then more of like, so, okay, where am I going? Go pick up your son and take him to Colorado. So, start with that. And I went right back to, am I dying? Is he dying? Am I dying in Colorado? And it basically, I didn't get any more information because I wouldn't quit asking if I'm going to make it or if I'm going to die. So, it didn't start with a go check on the rocks or something like that. It didn't.
Everything in its own time, right? I mean, it's the Lord's timing. It's his story. And if we trust him, he's got a story for each one of us. And then it just unfolds if we go along with it instead of having our own.
And the next thing you know, you got college professors talking like this.
Years, but I taught it this year, and it's been a beast. It's been a monster. There's just so much there in the prophets of the Old Testament. And what I realized as I was studying it, and as I've been teaching our students, and I knew this, but it just has become more plain to me. We are just largely ignorant of the Old Testament, the prophets. We as Christians, I pastored for 25 years. I didn't spend a lot of time in the prophets. I didn't preach and teach through prophetic books. You might pick a Jonah, something like that, or one of those short ones,
short.
or something. Obadiah, but we just don't spend a lot of time in the prophets. I think we don't really know what to do with the prophets, and we don't understand them. And I'm telling you, as you dive in and really look at what is there, on one hand, it's confusing. On the other hand, as you begin to read how the New Testament quotes and refers to the Old Testament, you begin to see things and realize, oh, so much of what it has happened in the New Testament scriptures was predicted. It makes sense. This whole idea of wars and rumors of wars, nations battling one another, that is all part of the language, the terminology, the visions the prophets saw surrounding the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. It's all there.
I used to have one of these volumes. I think that's a commentary on the Bible, but Cross and Crown Ministries, hats off Sergio. Fairly
Well, I
interesting.
totally agree with them, right? As far as you ignore it because it's kind of, in a way, it's confusing. You don't know how to sort it out, and it's so much more interesting than the New Testament, it seems.
Yeah. I'm sitting there going like, that's what I'm trying to tell you people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Hey, do you think I forgot that we're going to talk about Egypt and Canada? I haven't. But check this out, okay?
One of the things that a lot of people ask is if the world is only 6,000 years old and Adam and Eve were the first human beings, then how does Cain, after only Cain and Abel being born, get exiled and ostracized and require a mark for protection, and then finds a wife immediately in a place that's called Nod, which is
no, it only seems like he found a wife immediately.
That was at least 200 or 300 years later.
And builds a city for his wife.
Oh, look at that fake. That's a lot of place. They must have. No, they didn't rebuild that. Didn't even bother to try to decorate it. Jeez.
When there's supposed to be nobody else there, that you don't need a city, and calls it after his first son, Enoch, or Hanok, as some of the transliterations go. And if you look at that at face value, this happens very, very quickly afterwards, like within 20 or 40 years. So he's obviously not looking for protection from
Never mind.
generations down the road, although that may come into effect. But he's afraid in the moment. And so he's looking for protection and receives that mark. And then he finds...
Okay, now here's the question for you, JP, while we're waiting to talk about Egypt and Canada. How long do you think it's going to be? We're at 342 before he mentions the book of Enoch.
Oh, he'll only mention it once, somewhere close to the end in passing.
Okay. Well, that was perfectly sarcastic.
With the standard sort of chronology.
You could be more sarcastic, but I don't know how.
And I don't believe the Bible contradicts itself. So I believe the answers are in the Bible. I also don't necessarily accept the standard dogma at times, because it doesn't make any sense if the standard dogma is in conflict, and then that allows the adversaries to throw wedges into Christianity and create doubt. And so I always dig deeper in, and that's what I find is the answer is always deeper and found within the Bible if you actually find it. So I would indicate that Adam and Eve perhaps are not the first creation of humankind. That we get within the Eden account so many differences between the day 6 account that you are left with two possible options. One is the Bible is in contradiction, or there's a separate creation first in day 6, followed by day 7, followed by we don't know how.
Hey, JP.
Yeah.
One of those two choices just does not appeal to me at all. It'd be the one where the Bible's not true. So I guess it has to be something else. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that this Gary Wayne, the rock star of the non-flat Earth Trinitarian, there might be giants that aren't Anunnaki movement. What do you got?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, right? As far as all this other stuff, it's just takes you off the path. I mean, just stick to the Bible. As far as, I mean, when I had my wake up there, what was it, 5 years, a little over 5 years ago, and I didn't see it coming. As far as, I mean, my question I had put out there when you just asked an honest question because of intense stuff going on in your life and experiences, and you go, okay, I want to take these negative entities, energetic parasites off the biofield that I know are there, and I'm having these experiences
Wow.
with this crazy girlfriend. However, before I do that, I want to make sure I have the right authority behind me, because I'm just going to cut to the chase and call these things instead of that new agey way of describing them, because I didn't want to call them demons in the past when I was younger, and then I just realized they're demons. Just call them what they are. So who's the authority on demons? Got a moth in here all of a sudden. So there's basically asking that, right? Who's the authority on demons? Because I need, it's serious stuff. And then about a week or two later, it was like it's that synchronicity thing, whatever it took for me, right?
Yeah, what do you mean when you say you didn't see it coming? Tie that into it, because what do you mean?
Well, soft Catholic growing up. When I was like 6 years old, my parents basically pointed to the Catholic church on the corner in the little hamlet we lived in and said, "You're baptized Catholic. There's the church. Go check it out sometime, whenever you want." And I'd go check it out. The
Wow.
masses were in French. I didn't understand it exactly, but I knew the general story. And then my grandmother was Baptist, and she had the manic depression, right? So she had a lot of issues. And but anyway, when I was 16, my dad passed away, and then I'm left with my two older sisters, my mom, of course. And then I'm the type to ask questions, so I always knew that that there's God and everything. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
It just, the story, the way it was told, it just didn't quite add up. But of course, I always loved Jesus, right? I didn't like what the church was up to, the bunch of hypocrites. But Jesus is great, right? I mean, that was my teenage years. I'm looking at going, look at you hypocrites, what you're doing in history.
That's teenagers.
Yeah. And, basically, but I knew Jesus, I didn't get any better. That's one thing that I knew. And then I went off looking, into UFO stuff, New Age stuff, eventually conspiracy stuff. And
like horoscope. Did you start with that? Was that your gateway drug, the horoscope?
No. I just want to know how everything works, right? I'm like, I don't care about the horoscope, learning all this stuff. So
okay.
Know everything about myself and my day. I'm just like, I want to know how it works, because I want to know who we are and what's really going on in this world. The basic question. I've always wanted to know that since I was 6 years old, probably, from when I can remember. But and I thought it was simple. You told God, there's God made everything. You're like, okay, that makes sense as a child.
Yeah.
How did we get here? God, okay. And then you learn more, and then you get confused down the line, right? And so, yeah, I had pretty much left that behind. I thought the Bible was a control document because I didn't understand it, but I knew there's so many truths in it. So I thought it was a control document by the controllers at the top of the hierarchy of the world, using the truth to do their dastardly deeds on us, so to speak. But, then down the road, because I threw all that off. Oh, and then I came across this book called The Christ Conspiracy. I think when I was about 28 or
Josh
something.
McDowell? Was that Josh McDowell?
No, that was her name's weird. It's like it's some weird new agey name.
Oh, yeah, well, Josh McDowell wouldn't be new agey.
Yeah, and basically it was the whole thing comparing, the story though, comparing Jesus to these other cultures, savior,
Zeitgeist, yeah.
controlling this, that basic stuff.
What I do now, that's what I do now. I try to say there really was a council in heaven. It had to be something like that.
Well, yeah. So basically, that was the thing that really bummed me out because I went, "Oh no, not Jesus too." Jesus is, and then and then I think that's when things spiraled more because you go looking, but then you got to deal with life, and then you have all sorts of experiences and make bad choices and trying to sort it out over years. You can have a lot of frustration, and then the shoulder injury, which I didn't know it was exactly that. My energy would get low. I'd do stuff. I was very athletic when I was young, but then lost that quickly, and then couldn't understand what was going on, and just trying to figure out with my body. But seeing all these professionals, they don't know, because I want results. I don't give a shit about what they're saying. Sorry, but I just want results. And then you find out over time who's full of shit and who isn't. And then you go, and of course,
Hopefully.
my mother was a black sheep of their family, and she nursed, and she was always criticizing the medical system.
Well, you called it your town a hamlet. Now, how big is a hamlet there in Canada?
Oh, I think there was 200 people in the town, something like that.
200 people.
Yeah.
See, I lived where I went to high school was in a very rural part, only 85 miles from Chicago. But it took 3 towns to make the high school. Kinsman had 180, Verona had 215, and I was from Verona. So and then I moved to Mazan, and it was the metropolis of the area. It had 800 people in it. So
yeah, I moved around a fair amount, right? We left California. I was in Edmonton till I was 5. And then after that, I was Little Hamlet that I told you about. And then progressively larger places until eventually grow up into the cities and get that experience. Because I was a naive, innocent Canadian boy until I left and went down to Denver, Colorado, Golden. I was there for 12 years. And then came back to Canada and an angry American.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I know that Golden is nice. It's like, like you go through it on your, like the people that go gambling in Black Rock have to go through Golden a lot of time to get there.
I worked up there actually for 6 months.
At a casino or just in Black Rock?
In Black Rock at one of the casinos, the Lodge.
Oh.
That was the name of it, the Lodge Casino. It was the one where it goes right over the highway, the restaurant part. It was like the fine dining restaurant. Where they comp the meals for the people.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's a nice, Golden and Blackhawk is nice, but it's still too close to Denver. Too close to Denver. Right. Way too close to Denver.
That's the only way I could live there that I found out over time. I'm like, because I moved right to Golden, and it was at least on the edge, right? You could escape quickly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't live in the middle of the big city.
No, you could just go hit the Eisenhower Memorial Tunnel, and boom, you're in Breckenridge, and it's a whole different world when you get on the western slope and leave. Just hit a couple tunnels, and you're away from the evil. So let's hear a little bit more of Gary Wayne, and because I have yet to go like, there he goes, bringing in extra Bible.
How long? But sometime after day 7, the creation of Adam in Eden. And if you start sort of there and then start to look at the details, then you start to say, hey, there's more going on here than just the one creation.
But not more than one creator.
I would rather let the Bible say what the Bible says, especially in context of the greater story of the human race and our relationship with God, and then our relationship with God through Jesus Christ. So let me digress for just a second here and tell you about this movie that came out in 2010.
Let's don't.
The Lord Almighty planned it to bring down her pride in all her splendor and to humble
this is about
all
Satan.
who are renowned on the earth.
Isaiah 23 is one of those very interesting passages that sort of fits in with that dual prophecy sort of aspect that I like to talk about. And it has overtones not only for the end time, but for prehistory, and sort of particularly
That's a nice
mythos in polytheism called Atlantis.
Well, here we
And
go.
Atlantis
Strike one.
is a Genesis
Got
6 story. It has the gods who are the fallen
You
angels.
can call strikes too if you want. Take any time.
In particular, Poseidon as
And if you
being
want to
the
stop
king
and drop
of
any
Atlantis,
commentary, just
going
like
to
clear your
Clydo
throat or
to
something.
produce 10 demigod kings, just as you have sons of God in Genesis 6:4 going to human feet.
Matter of fact, I should play that again so that you can hear it and I'm not yapping like a yapper.
Not only for the end time, but for prehistory, and sort of particularly a mythos in polytheism called Atlantis. And Atlantis is a Genesis 6 story. It has
Plato
the
told the
gods or the fallen
Genesis story.
angels.
Folks, I did it again.
In particular, Poseidon as being the king of Atlantis, going to Clydo to produce 10 demigod kings, just as you had sons of God in Genesis 6:4 going to human females to create the Nephilim, demigods. Demigod
There you go.
meaning
There it is. Less than 20 minutes to basically to say without a shadow of a doubt that six. I went the wrong way. I was going back to Cain and Abel. So all we really know from Scripture is that there's enough of what was going on here. This is what people don't like. Just a countdown of years, and verses 3 and 4 was about Cain and Abel, and what we saw in verse 4, in chapter 4. Still, this is like a new start. It's a new start. It's kind of like Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, when it says, after the 7 days, and then it goes again with, and now here's the days of creation. We'll show you, because that it doesn't seem out of place, because this should start a new chapter, because this should be in chapter 1 if they were doing it right, because it's day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then thus the heavens were finished, and boom. So God blessed the work, and it was all done in creation. A new chapter if they're doing it right, and you're not Stephen Langton, the Archbishop of Canterbury, helping out and saying like, "Oh, I just was making notes for myself." What a baloney! These are the generations of the heaven and earth when they were created. And now, for the first time, I had a new thought enter my mind just now. I wish RJ was here. I've always put this as happening after the other creation of the image of God only, because they used the dust. But I'm going to leave the door slightly open for the first time that they were created before that other one, because these did with that in mind, see if you get any type of a sketchy vibe. But and remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I'm going to be trying to make it seem weird. Let's see. What weird part was I going to read? 4 and 5. These are the generations of the heaven and earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the heavens and earth. That's pretty specific. So these are the generations.
It sounds like that's all part of the creation between, like the new creation.
We've got to move on. And then it says, well, let's put that statement in a place in time. Okay, well, there was no bush of the field was yet in the land, and there was no small plant of the field that had yet sprung up. So it's out of order. J3 here. And God had not caused it to rain on the land. People have heard me ask before, if it's only been 6 days, what's the big deal? Oh my gosh. And I'm sorry, some people might think that's swearing, and I don't. But oh my goodness, is that count? It hasn't rained for a week. Let's panic. So something big's happening. It hasn't caused it to rain because it didn't need to rain. They had star forts irrigating the whole ground. That's the mist that went up. That's how you feed. That's how you water the earth. But in between that, because he had not caused it to rain on the land, and there was no man to work the ground. Now hold on. This is chapter 2. You're talking about here's the generations when they were created. This is all out of order because it's. Any comments? Sorry,
my mind is wandering as we're going through that, and that was my comment. My mind's wandering.
Okay, well, then it does drop some information, that is precious and rare. That wow, in the midst of the garden, there was a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We know precious little about it. Very important. And if they could have gotten their hands on it at that time, they could have eaten and lived forever. It didn't mean that God was going to die. They were just, I'm sure it wouldn't have worked out like, now we're living forever and it'd be great. But it wasn't even an option. It wasn't going to happen. But it's held out there as a possibility now. And it lays out, a lot about Eden. It's kind of forgetting that there's no Eve yet. And the Lord God took that man without the woman yet and put him in the Garden of Eden and said, get to work. Because there wasn't even a shrub of the field when this started. You may surely eat of all these things. He never told Eve this. He only told Adam. Eve is not created here. Tree of knowledge of good and evil again. And God notices it's not good for him to be alone. But there's still some more work. We've got to name the animals. He caused a deep sleep to come out of him, took a rib and made woman and brought her unto the man. And he said, at last, bone of my bones. Now that doesn't sound like Genesis chapter 1, male and female, he created them, because one is created and the other is formed out of the dust. Adam was formed out of the dust. The breath of life was breathed into him. Eve didn't need it. He got it from Adam. Wow, we're tearing it up tonight, brother. This is real Bible teaching.
Yeah.
You having fun? You want to hear a little bit more of Gary Wayne, or do you want to tell about do you know how to share the screen? Do you want so you can show your map?
Oh, I suppose I can try to figure out how to share it here. Yeah, I bought that Gary Wayne book. I don't know, two years ago, I think. And then I haven't actually really read it. I think I read it, opened it up, looked at a couple of pages, and I have never gotten back to it. So
I probably do that with half the books I buy.
I do that with at least half the books I buy. And usually it's an indication that it's not that important of a book, or it's not the right time.
Or that it's good to know. It comforts my mind knowing it's there, that if I ever have any questions, I'll, because sometimes just reading anything about the topic, even if it's an amen corner or something against it, it'll spur you to new thoughts. So let's hear a little bit more of the Gary Wayne, since you have snubbed his book.
The offspring of a god and a human female. So it's the same story. We get polytheism.
See, but the Bible doesn't really say that. The book of Enoch says it.
Looking through their polytheist lens, recounting the same story over and over and over and over. But the Atlantis one is just so important, I think, because it's used by secular society and polytheism today. And I think we get overtones in the Bible from it, and beginning with Isaiah 23. So
really,
this is an island that is destroyed. Well, Tyre wasn't an island. It had maybe a peninsula that was built on, but this is an island that's destroyed by the waters, right? This is and it's not that the king of
Yeah,
Syria.
is he talking about Atlantis being destroyed by the waters, or Tyre, which was, was built by the waters. Its foundations went down to the water. It's vague.
I don't know if when I'm listening to him, I get drawn into, all I hear is Atlantis, Atlantis, Atlantis. Listen to my words.
Mermaids or something, right? The power center where's the Power Rangers? They're from Atlantis.
Syria isn't going to come in and destroy Tyre, but he doesn't destroy it in this manner, right? And just as you have the king of Babylon that's going to come later and going to probably do some destruction on Tyre as well, and he does, but he doesn't destroy it in this manner. And this is the old city, which is language that's used in the Bible as it translates into English that goes back to a former age. And this is the location where all
look at
those
that
proud and renowned ones are located. This is just it is burgeoning with details that this is talking about a destruction of a city center of let's say beast empire of the antediluvian world.
Wow. Got good pictures. They're kind of neat here. Let's see what he says about this. Daniel 11. This guy here.
With gold and silver, with precious stones and precious things. So what Gary and I are submitting to you is, once the one world religion is set up, then Antichrist will come in and destroy that religion and claim that Satan.
So there you go. That basically sums it up. There in less than a half hour, they hit Atlantis, the Nephilim, the fallen angels, everything from the book of Enoch, and they're going to try to pull people back to, they started with a globe, they were showing it, plus they're dispensational, they don't believe in the added 1,000 years, and yet he's still there from the very beginning of the flat earth movement with Rob Skiba, Zen Garcia, and the others that love Enoch, that nobody ever heard of it until this flat earth psyop. And I'm a flat earther. I love the flat earth. Bible teacher RJ is in the house. He might be working here. This sounds like Paradise Lost. Yeah, they had Paradise Lost. Something's been no good. So we got the thing. So now to share the screen, there should be something there that it says share screen. If you click that, it comes to me, and then I click it, and then whatever's on your computer. So if you've got like a poster of a cat hanging on a bar saying, "Hold on, Friday's coming," you might want to take that down.
No, I just rushed to get everything set up. So I've only got tabs. I even put Chrome on because I'm like, maybe it'll work better with YouTube or so. But okay, so I see is present.
Yep.
Is that it?
I've never presented.
Share screen. There we go. It's off present. Okay.
And then you have to highlight it and then click apply or okay.
Oh, it says it's easiest with 2 monitors.
Well, don't worry about that. It's fine with 1.
Okay.
You'll be showing your screen. You won't be seeing me or yourself. You have to click the box that it's showing. Inside a box that's showing me and you, click it and then hit apply. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes.
Okay.
Is giants even the full meaning? Insects breeds birth defects. Giantism is one of them. Fallen is a significant part of the meaning, and also it happens after the flood. What happened? We don't have any idea of what they say happened. They just said there were Nephilim in those days. That's completely, it doesn't even with a participle or a dangling participle equate later when it says, and there were in those days, the sons of God saw the daughters of men. They don't even link. That's not a linking sentence. The sons of God, could very well have been the Egyptians, who the Bible says in Isaiah chapter 19, blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, the work of my hand, and Israel, my inheritance. Because at one point in Isaiah 3, they are a three-part worshiping the Lord situation. So, there's a lot implied there. What happened? Oh, birth defect made them into giants and then it happened again? Or was it just always going to be something that there were tall people in the old before the flood and there are tall people afterwards? We still have tall people today. We don't have anybody that was an angel that mated with a human and came out with a Perseus demigod type of a situation, as far as the scriptures can tell. And so, there it is. So, as you can see, JP, you are into it right now.
Great. Okay, so let's see. So I would go here. Okay, so what was the story? I heard about that Mount Assiniboine, right? So actually, I don't even need to put it in. You covered it the other day. So I'll just zoom in here and find it right here, right? So I came in for a look on it, of course, and got Mount Assiniboine. We see
what brought you to this? You saw this mountain in person?
No. Oh, I've driven by. So if you go back here, see over here.
Okay.
I've made this drive, right? But you have this mountain range here, and I'm wondering if I have seen it or not. It depends on. Yeah, I'd have to. I mean, there's so many peaks there, right? It's just a beautiful drive through here.
Right.
But it was, I think, on Facebook, somebody posted the picture of this Mount Assiniboine. So I was like, oh, well, look at that. Looks like a big pyramid. So I just wanted to take a look at it. So then I come and zoom in on it. And right away, I just noticed Magog Lake, right? And Lake Magog backcountry. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then I just started wondering, well, wonder what else is in the area. So that's when I zoomed out. And then I noticed the judge. And I'm like, what? The judge? Because obviously I'm thinking Jesus. And for a moment, I mean, if you look out a bit more, you've got down here, Millstone Peak.
Huh.
Up here, so, well, there's Goat Mountain over here. I mean, the goats and the sheep, right? I mean, I could be something else, but, and then just up here a little ways, where's the Mount Temple? Right over here. And of course, it just, in my mind, I turn it around and go, Temple Mount, So
sure.
I'm wondering, I'm thinking, is this telling us something? Are the names actually
those mountains just came right out of nowhere? I mean, that's like the Colorado Front Range, Rocky, just trees, then booms. And those mountains have that look that of electrical, it's not lenticular of where they do that, where they shock wood and it turns into a fractal patterns. That's exactly what that looks like to me.
Right. Well, if you follow here's Banff, okay? So that's driving through Banff National Park. And when you make this drive along here, right along here, this is, what do they call it? Castle Mountain? The Cascade Mountain's behind it, but this right here. And it looks like a giant, well, we can go down to it. Oh, And here we go. Oh, Castle Mountain. Sorry, it's over here. But if you notice right now, there's Mount Ishbel here. Mount Bell is right here. Of course, you have Mount Temple. And there's a Mount Ball. That's somewhere down in here as well. But what's more interesting is going down here, and we'll just go down to a 3D look. And it's this drive along this highway. And I've got some video of it because up in here, there looks like there's a huge opening. I think it's maybe this one here. I'm not sure. It's hard. Yeah, I think maybe that's, well, sorry. Yeah, it's hard to say just with the Google Earth and everything, but this whole thing looks like a giant building, like something was built up here and it melted, right? And it's called Castle Mountain. So anyway,
the Meltology crowd is going to love that.
Yeah, and right over here, you'll notice Helena Peak. And there's the Hellenists, right?
Yeah, Greeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then basically go back up, I guess. So, but the most interesting thing I found was what I thought was the judge. So let me go back here so I can get my orientation. Okay, let's go back to the judge here because it's very interesting. You got the judge right here.
Zoom it in. Let me see it. Okay, I got my glasses on. Okay.
And it's not a high, considering the ones that are on either side of it, it's not a high range. It's kind of a lower. And actually, let's see what it looks like, what they show us for pictures.
Yeah, I like it. You're way up there.
Oops. But it's kind of like, well, anyway, let me get out of this. Maybe it's better to go here. So these mountains are higher, right? On this side, and I'll just turn around and go back to this side.
Wow.
Whoops.
Yeah, those. For some reason, there's another word. It's not lenticular, but that definitely looks like it got hit with the glittering sword. And what? Some of the other, there would be more in Doric basins, but the Bible says that in Habakkuk or Nahum, when he rode on the earth in his chariot of wrath with his glittering swords, spears, and arrows, and fired them, and he cleaved the mountain so that the rivers could flow again. Otherwise, it'd all be in Doric after Armageddon.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I was wondering the way it looks to me here, because there's a bit of a valley now on either side of this, right? And I don't know if this was there before, but it's kind of like I looked at this, and to me, it looks like the way the fractals go out.
Yeah.
Kind of from this point, they go out from this way and off to this way, and this is going along the continental divide, essentially.
Really?
So, yeah. So, I mean, if you follow this is actually the
if you follow it, it goes down near where I live. I've skied on the Continental Divide in Colorado. It's called Mount Monarch. Yeah,
right through Eisenhower Tunnel there. So anyway, but I basically decided to look what else is going on because I'm following this down. Now I live over here in Lethbridge, and when a clear day, we can see the mountains pretty easily, right? But there's this one mountain down here in Waterton National Park in Canada, in Alberta, and then in Montana, it's Glacier National Park. So they butt up against each other right there, right?
Yeah, same
So
thing. Yeah.
so basically, Chief Mountain, because
Huh.
that is right here, and it's like blocky. This is a wild, actually. Just taking a look at this thing, we'll come in closer, and then we'll do the.
Well, you live in pretty much the middle of nowhere too, man.
Yeah. And that just, it's Chief Mountain, right? I mean, and then basically, yeah. So I thought for some reason I'm going Chief Mountain because we're told the native chief, the Indians, and their history of the area, right? But I'm thinking, wait a second. There's Ezekiel, 38, where it says, "Say to Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Tubal and Meshech." And I'm thinking chief prince because that's associated with judgment back in the day, right? Like Ezekiel 38, 39, right before Jesus returned.
The
And so,
chief prince.
yeah, so basically, I'm looking at this. I'm going to go back and get my orientation again. I'm thinking, well, how interesting is that? And what else is up here? And all of a sudden, I noticed this. I'm like, Camp of Israel. What's this? And then I zoomed in, and it's like Camp of Israel, Camp 1, Camp of Israel Valley. So I'm just seeing these names, right? And it's kind of like, well, look at all these things. And Paco, we're not going to ever figure something out like this definitively. Like what's the point? We don't, and we don't necessarily need the information for what we need to get through in this time that we live in. But it's nice to have an idea, maybe.
No, it definitely proves because that the Christianity was everywhere, and then even after the reset, the people that moved took it with it. I mean, and everybody wanted to be utopian. They were going to, when they did these kit towns in Western Canada and Western United States, they were tricked into going there. They weren't told about the winters in the 1800s of what it was. I mean, I live at 7,544 feet, and the people that came here to farm were tricked, and they wrote about it. They bitched about it. They sued. They wanted their money back, but they were stuck here. And they had to deal with, like, you put us on land, you sold us Indian land, It was all part of the same deal. There are, Rome is a city on 7 hills. Washington, D.C., they're small, but it's 7 hills. There's a lot of towns that tried to do this. Now, this has to tie in, though, I think, with the broader picture of it maybe being so big, of it possibly going down to the redwoods in California where Lebanon or the cedars of Lebanon talked about in the Bible. So I'm open. I just don't. This is something that I hate it when I have to go, I don't know, but.
Oh, I don't know either, right? I definitely,
Yeah.
I'm with you. It's just something where I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. And then I thought, what other names? I was thinking about where they buried the bones. For 7 years they had to go through.
Oh, yeah, and they used them for fire. I mean, you could use them for fire, burn them.
So I put Hamongog, thinking, what am I going to come up with? And you have first Hamongog here in Utah, right next to Salt Lake City.
And people ask me, where are where's all the weapons? Where's this fancy? Well, they burned them up. But that's not the weirdest stuff. They have that, people going out, and it's like to gather the bodies, and there's other people that they're assigned that, hey, if you see any of these other bodies, mark a sign, and then we'll send the people to clean them up later. That's weird.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we got this stuff here with the Hamongog and one over here. Like first Hamongog, now East Hamongog.
Wait a minute here. I got to put you back on the thing.
Ooh.
Can you see it?
Okay, yeah, I can see it now. Yeah, I can see how to work better with my split screen. I'm gonna have to set it up next time. But so we've got the Hammond there, right? Next to
Hammond.
Salt Lake City. Hammond.
Do you know that Mount Megiddo is only 70, 80 feet in fake Israel right now? The one they're passing off as Mount Megiddo in fake Israel is only 70, 80 foot tall.
I know, it's ridiculous.
I don't know Exodus, but it sounds fairly intriguing, and intuitively it sounds pretty correct to me. I don't think he's going to show up here and be like, "Hey, I'm going to give out some false info. Nobody cares." Welcome, Sergio. Thank you for that link to that one professor guy. I'm so happy that a college is teaching the Golden Age past theology. I can't believe it. Go ahead, JP. What do you got, man? You got Gog Magog in Canada. What else?
Yeah. So I've got the Hammond, right? I mean, I thought about that, did a search, just saw it by Salt Lake City. I thought that was interesting, of course, too. But now I'm trying to sort out the whole thing. Like, okay, so how did this, because this is all like a fractal. It's like a Lichtenberg pattern.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and it almost seems like when the big event happened, I don't know if this is me presuming this, but it seems like Jesus touched the ground with his glittering sword, and that spread out over the whole earth and did what it needed to at that moment, as far as reshifting the lands and all that stuff, melting mountains, islands, fleeing, all that stuff that happened right then on that moment. And so it's almost like, did he touch down in a bunch of places that he was doing that?
He rode on his chariot over the whole face of the earth and shot his glittering arrows and flashing sword and gleaming spear. And all those words mean electric. They all tie back to lightning, glittering, and stuff like that. You want to see those Bible verses?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, because, and then he even had to carve out some of the ground. And I used to use the expression when I was a lot more flippant and, had 600 subscribers and was trying to get to 1,000. I'd be going like, God was cutting cookies on this earth, and maybe he was.
Yeah, he's shaping something, shaping the land.
Yeah. Here's just some of the things that are going to happen. And here's some of the things that they're going to be doing. What the Chaldeans are going to be, that bitter, hasty nation that's going to march over the breadth of the earth for that yuck. Siege dwellings, not their own.
Oh, I don't think you're not sharing it now, and I can't see.
Oh, that's right. I needed to put it. I needed to do it to my. I still had the map of Canada up. I need a split screen too. They seething dwellings. They're dreaded and fearsome. Their horses are swifter than leopards, and I've heard leopards can haul ass. Fierce than wolves. Horsemen pressing on. Horsemen come from afar to devour. Flying like eagles, swift to devour. So here, they're going to scoff at all the star forts. They don't care. They sweep by like
Paco, do you think that could account then for like a lot of the, I don't know. I mean, if you look at a lot of the fractals and what we can see on the surface of the earth on different spots, it doesn't necessarily look like they are connected to one large event. Like they're almost localized, but then
I would say it was one continuous event, because when God Yahweh is on his chariot, that's not God the Spirit just going, boom, judge them all at once. This was a process. It started in Jerusalem. They got it the worst.
I just think of, and I guess there's those
Right. Okay, so they were, those Jewish people were the people who built their town with blood. You know, he's talking, like Tyre, city built on there. Behold, is it not from the Lord of hosts that people labor merely for fire, and nations weary themselves for nothing? Yikes, that's bad. Now, verse 3, chapter 3, I mean. Let's see. Here we go. So here we have here. In the midst of the years revive it, in wrath remember mercy. God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran, musical crescendo. His splendor covered the heavens. The earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like the light. Rays flashed from his hands, and there he veiled his power. Before him went pestilence. Okay. Good thing he was holding back. Plague followed in his heels. He stood and measured the earth. He looked and shook the nation. The eternal mountains were scattered. The everlasting hills sank low. His were the everlasting ways. Now that's a past tense participle. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction. The curtains in the land of Midian did tremble. Was your wrath against the rivers, O Lord? Was your anger against the rivers, or are you mad at the sea? When you rode on your horses, on your chariot of salvation, you stripped the sheath from your bow, calling for many arrows. See, he didn't shoot them all at once, musical crescendo. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and withered. The raging water swept on. The deep gave forth its voice. It lifted its hand on high. The sun and the moon stood still in their place at the light of your arrows as they sped, at the flash of your the sphere. That I was speaking in tongues. So anyway, this is a process. So you're absolutely right. It wasn't the the Most High Spirit just going, do it. Bah! He can do it all at once, man. No doubt. But this was a process. He marched through the earth in fury. He threshed the nations in anger. Whew. You went out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. Yay. You crushed the house of the wicked. So you got I think it's the electric part I wanted to show, because we already showed enough scary stuff tonight, right? Well, no, we haven't, because we've only shown Habakkuk. We didn't show Nahum. Are we going to get any type of though he is slow to anger? Oh my goodness, when you're guilty in his time, his way is in the whirlwind and the storm. There's your vortex. And that's what you are, JP. You're just a battery, electric product that's a spinning in infinity and Analema Morpheus. Ah! You're a Taurus. He rebukes the sea, makes it dry, mountains quake, hills melt, earth heaves before him, the world and all who dwelled in it. Nobody can stand before that. This is like he's going to make a complete end. Trouble will not rise up a second time. Consumed like stubble fully dry. I thought we were going to get some. There's only 2 chapters in this one here, right? No, there's 3. So here comes the destruction. Shields of his mighty men in red, clothed in red, chariots with flashing metal on the day he musters them. Cypress spears are banished. Okay, that's not. They dart like lightning. This is the people coming to judge Jerusalem, I think. The river gates are open. The palace melts away. Its mistress is stripped. She's carried off with her slave girls, lamenting, moaning like doves and beating their breasts. Nineveh is like a pool. Halt, halt. None turns back. Desolation, desolation. Wow. So we've got the lightning. We've got the desolation, the crack of the whip, the rumble of the wheel, galloping horse, bounding chariot, horsemen charging, flashing sword, glittering spear, hosts of slain, heaps of corpses, dead bodies without end. They stumble over the bodies for all the countless whorings I think they're implying Jerusalem. Graceful and of deadly charms, who betrays the nation with her whorings and people with her charms. Behold, I am against you, going to lift up the skirt. It's just bad. It's all bad. Here, are you better than Thebes or than other ones that got destroyed? No. Her rampart, a sea, and a water, her wall. Cush was her strength. Egypt, too, that was without limit. Put and Libyan, they had a alliance, yet they were cast down to pieces. Drunken refugees. Behold, the troops acted like women. You go fight them. You're not going to have a chance. You're going to be like, you have to wait on God. So I think there's a lot of electricity going on. It could be happening there.
Well, when you see what electricity, when they're doing the electric machining, and it's hitting the surface and it just cuts it away, and then you just scale that up to the surface of the earth.
Yeah. People need to start looking at things more in a 3D fractal way. You're cutting in and out a second here. You'll come back, JP. There you go. You're back. Oh, you were kind of sketching in and out there for a second, man. What were you trying to say?
No. Oh, gee, I forgot now. Am I coming through okay still?
Yeah, Randy lives in one of those. How the cities they just put up little towns. Him and his wife practically run that town, and they live in one of those old, it's a little, it's a house size front, but it's like 10 houses behind it, where it's just long and thin and just keeps going. And then it has a basement and everything. We're still living. I think every generation, JP, lives in cities they didn't build, that God gives them only for a short time. And it's just so scary when we all know what's coming for the United States. And our hope is years away because we don't see a rapture coming anymore. That terrifies a lot of people. And, because that is a comfort. Like, yeah, it's so bad. What happens if Michelle Obama gets elected? Glad I'll be raptured. What if you're not?
Yeah, but how do you even like the whole rapture thing? It's them not being honest with themselves by simply looking at the history of the last 150, 200 years, where you have how many times they're saying, okay, there's the rapture's coming, and like the different people would say that they'd have the movement, and then it wouldn't happen, and then, as you've said in the past, they'd fall away, and 20 years later, 30 years later, another movement had happened. And there was wars happening the whole time, rumors of wars and wars actually happening. So,
yeah, and the biggest ones of them all, World War I, was signed as an armistice, and in case, because there's 20 or so people watching, in case you didn't know, the world isn't run by governments; it's run by the mafias of these areas. They have their turf. And you don't mess with the mafias. And we learned that in World War II when Italy was helping the Nazis, they had to let Lucky Luciano out of prison, and he was in the mafia so that he could tell the mafia, stop sabotaging the ships in New York City. And they let him out, and they stopped sabotaging them. And then Italy turned on Germany, but that was for a different reason. That's a different story. Go ahead, brother. We're closing in on 2 hours, but I don't want you to feel like you got shorted. I drug you through an hour of other things before I let you talk, man.
No worries. Yeah, no, I just, my only thought, Tech, I guess, add is, we think about directions, and then they talk about the east and west from the north and south. But the orientation of the way the lands are now are different than how they were before they were thrown, spread out. And so I'm sitting there looking at, Google Earth and trying to piece it. Okay, how do things go back together? And I'm just thinking, well, okay, Pangea, look that up. So basically, looking at Pangea, because they do the illustration, you've got the video with the animation, which shows how it spreads out. So when it goes back together, in the middle, you have one large sea in the middle of Pangea, and there's some other seas in there as well, some smaller ones, but it's like one large landmass and a big sea in the middle. And then you get to see how it spreads out and how the land stretches out as it goes, so
Yeah.
I think that was 1,300 years ago ish, right, when Jesus returned, that Pangea. So I agree with your.
It's something sometime had to happen, because the Bible talks about it doesn't have to be Atlantis. There's plural islands that got washed away. Some mountains were removed. The whole mountain, according to the Bibles that are on some maps, were really there, and now they're not. Because when he was cutting cookies in his chariot of wrath, going everywhere, going like, how about some of this, who knows what happened, but the earth was shocked, and the best thing to do is for us to wake up and realize there's not help coming from the Republican or Democratic Party. This seems to be that it's going to be a race to the bottom for this election. Who would want to take over this economy? Trump doesn't want anything to do with it. He's flip-flopping on abortion and guns and other things because nobody can fix this economy. It's going to tank. The Democrats are going to panic, and Michelle Obama is probably going to run for Senate in the midterms. And this is how they're going to drag it out in day-to-day news. And then she's going to do like her husband did, announce she's going to run for president because the people are forcing her to. And by the way, she used to be a man. They had to hide it because the world wasn't ready for it. But since things are so much better now, and abortion's been legal for, at that time, it will be 60 years, everybody's going to go like, you're the best. That's the way I see things playing out. Although I have not said, thus saith the Lord on that. I've only said that's what I think.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a show to distract us all
along the way. It's going to be the biggest spread and circus you'd ever imagine, because when I'm talking about the rest of the world is recovering, when our economy crashes, it's not going to affect the rest of the world. It's going to affect us. And they're going to call for Michelle Obama because we're screwed. It's going to be bad. It's going to be like those other countries when some other countries say, where's our money? They're not afraid of us. When is the last time we won a war? Somebody's telling me it's 60, 65 years ago. And if they count Korea as a win, come on, you're kidding me. And we fake won World War II. So Korea, go ahead and take as much time as you want, because I'm going to let the people get out of here and thank them for stopping by. And we'll get RJ's take on it. Stick around. RJ might pop on, and Sergio, if you want to pop on after the show, I can host up to 10 people I'll put another link in if you want to ask JP any questions. And like I said, it's very possible that RJ might pop on if he's free for a few minutes. So go ahead and wrap it up, and then I'll end the show.
Oh, I had a thought earlier when you were talking, because it's like, what can we do during this time? And there's the whole show that they have going on for us to distract us. But really, our hope is in the Lord. And, before Jesus returned, he had scattered his people to the nations and then gathered them back to a place, right? So, and who did that? Who gathered them?
Oh my goodness, right when he was getting right to the point. Say that whole thing again, JP, because it froze up right. We said right when he got to the point of, and he froze.
Oh yes. So right before Jesus returned, and everybody was scattered, his people were scattered. He's the one who gathered them. back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the angels of the Lord who gathered his people back. It was the Lord himself who did it, right? Or am I mistaken about that?
No, actually, the word is draws them, and the word isn't like he drew a picture of them. It's like he drew water from a well. Like it wouldn't have moved unless he drew it up. And so we are irresistibly drawn to Jesus because our heart's been changed. And when I was studying Confucius for the first time in my life today, one of Confucius's big thing is that, look, there are certain people in the world, they're not inclined to disorder. And in those provinces, you have no problem. He said, other people that are inclined to it, you're not going to stop it. They do not see it as wrong.
Right. Yeah. And that's,
yeah. It's not a perversion of the Bible. It's a co-option of the Bible. They do it most famously with the Bible clearly teaches you reap what you sow. And I mean, it says it, boom, just like that. You reap what you sow. And so they go, oh no, it's fate. That's the same thing. It's karma. It's the same thing. You know, you reap what you sow. Why do you have to, put it? It's because they don't want Jesus. Well, we'll end it with that.
Yeah, the karma thing's the balance, right? They go, well, it's a balance of good and evil and everything, but I prefer just you reap what you sow. There's the seeds, and that's what grew, and that's the fruit you got.
Right, and even if you planted the seed and somebody else watered it, as like you were going earlier, it's God that gives the increase. Welcome, Jenny. So I want to remind everybody, it's not always going to be globe earth. We're not globe earthers, but we will use the Google, and it's a very interesting tool. So with that said, I want to remind everybody it's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. Don't let anyone tell you anything else. My friends will never, because we're one called, two chosen, three doing our best to be faithful. Amen. Hallelujah. Oh, aloha, arriba.